Hi everyone, welcome to our Camworth event. This is the first in a series of webinars aimed for service providers, specifically independent network operators, disrupting the tier ones. With the government target set for 2025, our goal for this series is for you to have a better understanding of what it means to build a network for the future. This is a three-part series where we'll be going into a more technical discussion on some of the later events. For today, we'll be offering attendees the opportunity to have a free one-to-one Q&A session with a Cisco service provider engineer, and I'll leave all the details on the last slide. Please also use these details for any event feedback and suggestions. We're still building a lot of the content for these technical discussions, so this is your chance to keep these as relevant to you as possible. My name is Will Lawrence Mills. I'm the Service Provider Account Manager here at Camworth. Thank you for taking the time to join us for this talk today. I'm really excited to have you here. Our guest speaker today has been working in the telecoms industry since 1988, working the design, operations, and most recently sales on some of the world's biggest and most complex networks. He's worked at Cisco since 1997, holding a variety of technical roles. He was responsible for the development, design, and deployment of the Cisco solutions that underpin the growth of key technologies in the development of the internet in the UK. Following 6 years as Cisco's CTO for service provider business in the UK and Northern Europe, he's currently focused on a new role within the service provider, working with Cisco partners. So we're really pleased to have the opportunity to share his valuable insight. So to kick things off, Dom, what are some of the biggest challenges service providers are facing in the current climate?
Hi, Will. So thanks for having me. Really a pleasure to be here. So I think this slide illustrates it really, really well. Our service providers are being challenged by changes that are happening across the industry. The move to cloud, the focus on mobility and persistence, which ultimately is resilience for many of our service provider customers, the ability to be able to respond to situations like the pandemic really quickly and with agility is ultimately dependent on the service provider's ability to roll out a network that meets that. But for the most part, revenues are flat, no growth. There's huge investment required to keep up with the average connection speed rising with 5G rollout. And trying to build some of these new services which leverage most of their intelligence from the cloud and software-defined architectures on top of a legacy network that's been built up over many, many years with systems and layers of complexity is a real challenge. So now's a time for our service providers to really think about how they're going to deliver the next generation of services, which are going to look very different from those that have gone before. How effectively can they automate? How simple can they make the network to allow that automation to be truly effective? And how can they deliver that persistence of experience that's so important? And persistence of experience is really key because making sure that the end user, your service provider customer can access the data, tools, and information that they need securely from the office, from home, from a mobile, from a coffee shop, from an airport is absolutely critical to being relevant to those service providers. So it's really important that we understand what those challenges are and we work together to get those resolved. And at Cisco, we're really focused on that. So we've been working in a lot of areas to deliver those new capabilities that our service providers are looking for. We focus on the simplification of the network, on new technology, our integration of optical technology, segment routing, all kinds of capabilities into the equipment, simplifies the design and delivery of the network. That optimizes the way in which the infrastructure works, leveraging lower power, lower heat output, meaning the overall cost of operation goes down. We highly automate all of the elements of those new services. to ensure that you can deliver quickly and effectively with agility to meet the demands of your customers. We're leveraging the best virtualization combined with the physical infrastructure to make sure that you've got the right capabilities present in the right places on the right platforms. And by that, I mean the ability to have a high performance software defined routing platform within a cloud environment, working virtually with exactly the same features, functionality, and capability as the physical device that is working in one of your exchanges or one of your central offices. And finally, all of that capability needs to be highly programmable so that you can abstract the capability, extract the information from the network, either to your customers so that they can program it themselves, or to your own operations team to make your operations simpler and more effective. And with that programmability comes also rich analytics, constant streaming telemetry from the network that will allow you to make better decisions about how you capacity plan, to foresee potential issues in the network area, but most importantly, to be able to offer really robust and tight SLAs, not only around uptime and downtime, but actually around application performance based on measurements coming from the analytics side of our infrastructure.
And when we think a lot of new service providers, they're disruptors to the industry, what should those business strategies look like for them?
So for us, the Optimum business strategy is this. It's about having that super efficient pipe provision, that network fabric that underpins every element of the connectivity. It needs to be cost efficient, automated, and really importantly, it must be secure. But then you've got to combine that with value-added partnerships with people like Cisco, partnerships with SaaS providers, partnerships with any number of tooling providers that allow you to bring that pipe, that network fabric to life for the customer so it's truly relevant. And that will mean that the enterprise can consume that network in a safe, efficient way that is secure, that is persistent, but also delivers the analytics and the application data that they need to understand how their estate is performing. That network needs to be ready for the onslaught of 5G. We didn't know what we didn't know back when 4G first came onto the scene. If it hadn't been for 4G, would we have seen the rise of the selfie, the rise of the social media platforms that we know, love, and many of us rely on today? We didn't know. That's not why we built 4G. That's not why we're building 5G. The applications will come, and that will create new opportunities for the software providers, the hardware providers, but underpinning all of that is the service provider network. And finally, what is going to go on at the edge of the network? We've seen the hyperscalers begin to move their technology as an option towards the edge. We've seen the need for edge technologies in the IoT space and in other spaces to allow mission critical applications to be delivered with the lowest latency and high performance at the edge. And we've seen the need for caching and content optimization for the myriad of video services that are all coming into our homes. So overall, if you put that together in the new world order, you're in really good shape to be able to meet the demand and the opportunity that's coming towards you.
Thanks, Dominic. I think business strategy and the digital transformation discussion is really relevant and something we're talking to with a lot of our service provider customers. I want to use this slide as a bit of an opportunity to talk about our experience in service provider and some of the types of projects that we're currently working on. Camworth has been involved in the service provider environment for the past decade, and that has really allowed us to get a deep understanding of an ISP and really how the network has had to meet the changes in how and where traffic is consumed on the network. Pipe provision, it's critical that technology fits into the business model of a service provider and they get all the benefits from a Cisco infrastructure or any infrastructure. When we look at transformation, we're seeing customers who started out at 10 gig backbones who are now working on us with 100 gig upgrades, on a foundation of Cisco technology. Engaging with Camworth and the design and deployment of these types of solutions. I think we've been able to do that because Camworth are very customer centric, understanding the uniqueness of an ISP organization and having a service first culture at the core of what we do. And of course, it is service provider. It's specialized. So there is a technical skill set that needs to go with that. And that's some of the logos up on the page at the moment. But really, that's a snapshot of Camworth and our services and sort of what we do. But what would be really useful to hear is maybe about Cisco's relevance in service provider and what you're currently doing in that space.
Cheers, Will. So for us, it really boils down to two areas, the infrastructure and the digitization of the business. So first of all, we are investing hugely in the development of next generation networks. Networks that are simple, networks that integrate optical technologies, lower power, lower heat, networks and devices that are designed from the ground up to deliver that experience that our customers are looking for. And that doesn't today end in the telephone exchange with the big router with a lot of flashing lights on it. Today, that projects into the data center. Our software works as well on our own hardware as it does on virtual environments. And that gives you a lot of options, whether you want to run it on your own private production data center, or you want to run it in the public cloud. You can now have a seamless experience across all of the capabilities within our portfolio. And then we have to think about, how does that go to market? Well, it goes to market through the enterprise business that we help generate demand for, working with our high touch teams to leverage your managed services that are in the market. It works within the B2B environment, allowing that capability to be delivered, whether it's embedded deeply in the network and in your infrastructure, or whether it's over the top. But also you can take those technologies and you can combine them together within your own organization to make sure that you, as a service provider, provide the best IT experience to your employees to allow them to really live the dream that you're trying to sell to your customers. And that's really important, because if you're an efficient and agile company, your customers are going to resonate with that. Whether they're consumer customers or they're business customers, they're going to like the fact that you're easy to do business with. It's simple to get access to your customer service over multiple channels, et cetera, et cetera. So for us, it's the 360-degree approach to how you develop and deliver both the network, the services, and the customer support that you provide to your end users.
Brilliant. And when you talk about services and sort of a network for the future, what do some of these next gen services look like for that network?
So if we look at how we've built the network up, we will always have a network infrastructure. As I've said earlier on in the presentation, that infrastructure is going to change a lot and is changing a lot to reflect the fact that previously a lot of the value and a lot of the revenue generation that came from the network was embedded inside the network. If you think about going back 30 years, the PSTN, the phone network, all of the billable capabilities of the phone network essentially existed within the phone network. If we play it forward into a software-defined world, that's no longer the case. Much of the billable capability exists above the network. So we need to make sure that network is secure. We need to make sure that network is highly available. And as I've said over and again in this presentation, it needs to be super simple and cost effective to reflect the fact that not all of the revenue is now coming from the network. That network needs to be abstracted to the higher order systems, both for you and your customers, so that it can be programmed, it can be analyzed, and that you can move to an environment where you have foresight rather than hindsight when it comes to planning and building out your network services. Being able to preempt failure, move traffic under those failure scenarios is a really, really strong revenue generating SLA capability that we can deliver through our Thousand Eyes and AppD analytics platform, combined with the analytics that come out of the underlying infrastructure. You put all of those together and you really have got a long range radar as to what's going on an application basis, which allows you then to make sure that the customer experience remains high no matter what's going on in the fabric of the network. And that's really important as we move towards SaaS-based services. The essence of SaaS-based services is that they are driven by the consumerization of IT. It's super simple to watch any of the over-the-top video providers. It's super simple to stand up Office 365 or Sage Accounting as a SaaS offer. But the network that gets the end user from the office or wherever they are to that SaaS application needs to be highly available and needs to deliver a customer experience. Because whilst we've simplified the delivery of the service, if anything, we've increased the customer expectation on how it's going to behave. So we need to be in a position where we can show that the network is not just a commodity, and the network is something that is absolutely key to the success of these SaaS rollouts and OTT consumption. It's not a coincidence that Netflix advertises the performance of service providers by country. It's important that you do not fall to the bottom of that list because you've underinvested in your network or your network's not operating in the right way. So if we bring that all together, whether you're selling into the consumer space or into the B2B space, having the ability to be able to show strong performance and strong resiliency and capability in that infrastructure gives you that potentially self-healing network that's been a panacea for a long time. It's not truly self-healing. What it's really doing is responding to changes in user experience to make sure that they get the right experience and the experience that they pay for.
And with, SaaS-based consumption, it's sort of a mega trend in business at the moment. How have Cisco changed their model to sort of fit in the changes in the demands for service provider?
So we've been really busy, not just developing fantastic new hardware, right? We have been focused on pivoting more towards software consumption. So now a typical BOM for a Cisco service provider network is dominated by software. And with it being dominated by our software, that means that we can introduce new models, pay-as-you-grow models that allow you to deploy as and when you need it. The ability to make that software portable. So as you move through our product families, you don't have to relicense every single time. We've made that software much more open with published APIs, which we're leveraging ourselves for automation and our own automation toolkit, but also you can leverage within your own toolkit. That may not be Cisco. That's fine. We understand how the service provider market works, and we're absolutely focused on making sure that our technology works brilliantly with our hardware, brilliantly in your cloud, brilliantly in the public cloud, and integrates beautifully with third-party apps. Overall, that gives you massive reduction in OpEx, huge levels of scalability, and an ability to rapidly launch new services much quicker, because the dependency on the network and network features is now mitigated by the fact that they're defined in software and can be delivered consistently across a number of platforms.
And thinking about these building blocks, what is Cisco doing in this space from a product point of view?
So we're evolving our products constantly. You will have seen probably about 18 months ago now, we announced our new Silicon family, Silicon One. Huge departure for Cisco. Our partners, especially the web scalers, can now buy our silicon and embed it into their own white box hardware to make sure they get the best of both worlds. The software that underpins that silicon, iOS XR, is pervasive across all of our physical platforms that you can see here on the screen. as well as the virtual platforms that I've talked about earlier on. The silicon is now present in the Cisco 8000 series, which is the latest high-end core router. And we've made massive investments into optical technology, both optical, as in the carrier technology, but also optics with our recent acquisition of Acacia. We are now focused on delivering optics within the platform that are fully integrated, that help with that delayering, that flattening, and that cost efficiency that I talked about earlier on. And what's really important about the way that we're leveraging those optics is that as the speeds and the nature of the optics changes, optics begin to form a much bigger proportion of the hardware bill of materials. Previously, they were almost a commodity. You bought your network equipment and then you went and furnished it with optics. Today, if you look at a chart, in some BOMs, they can be as much as 70% of the hardware build out. So it's absolutely key that we get that right. And that's why you'll have seen so many internal and acquisition-based developments around our optical space. So you put that portfolio together and it's really strong. It's moving forward at pace, and we're seeing huge levels of uptake from our customers as they seek to move to a network capability that can deliver on the services that I've discussed previously in the presentation. So in summary, I think what you'll have learned today, I hope, is that the customer expectation of IT is changing. It's a cloud-first world, and as a service provider, you need to leverage your capability, your reach, your intellect, as well as the work that we're doing to make consumption easier, to get the maximum value out of that investment. But that network now needs to be much simpler, built around these new design principles of software-defined networking. It redefines the entire offer. These days, you do not need to own all of the infrastructure. You may partner to give you more reach. You may leverage the public cloud as a means to quickly stand up network capabilities that previously you may have had to build out in your own data centers. And we're really focusing on developing that tool set that allows you to get the maximum value out of the investment that you make in our networking technology, and simplify that journey as you move towards the new cloud-based and SaaS-driven model.
Dominic, thank you so much. I mean, that was real thought-provoking presentation. Really good to get a detailed overview of Cisco's vision and strategy for service provider technology. As I mentioned at the start of the event, we are offering a technical Q&A session to all attendees. This was a senior Cisco SE, and really a chance for you to discuss your own direction for the network and where you want to take this. My details are up on the slide. Please get in contact with me if you want to book this session, and for any feedback on today's talk. So thanks again for everyone watching, and keep an eye out for our next event.
Thanks, Will, and thanks for having me. Good luck.
Thanks, Dominic.
Cheers.